Hey, what's up YouTube? So a while ago I posted a video and my goal is to try to get it as quickly as possible in under 5 minutes of what I think is the best way to estimate. And essentially what I was saying is figure out all your inputs. Like if you have employees, what do you pay them? How much do you get paint for? How long does it take to do things? Put it in a spreadsheet and then have that spreadsheet do all the math to tell you what the price should be. Took it a little bit of a step further to show you, once you know your cost, how much do you need to increase that by so that you can make the profit that you need to make? And I know it's easier said than done by giving you the concept and actually putting it into a spreadsheet. So I wanted to show you how you actually put that into the spreadsheet. And I wanted to do it in two ways. One way, if you want to fast forward to 16 minutes and 40 seconds of this video, I'll show you how to make a really basic one, but even that basic one is going to be extremely useful and powerful, and you can just follow along, copy paste, and take that with you and estimate paint jobs very quickly. The other thing I wanted to do, and what I'm actually going to go over first, is show you, here's like my interior and all these different standards that we use, and here's my exterior with a bunch of different standards that we use, and we put in the measurements and then we get a number. So I just wanted to show you how those work. For the interior, you've got 9 different rooms, and each room has its own measurements. And to make it easy, you only edit things that are colored. I just wanted to show you like how this works. So for prices, you turn this off, it's not included in the price. And really, you can do up to 9 rooms per estimate sheet. So if it has 20 rooms, you're gonna need more than one estimate sheet. But most open floor plans and stuff will say, this is kitchen / dining room if it's an open floor plan, or, let's call this the master bedroom. All right, and then we'll get that the ceilings are, 9 foot high in this room. And then, it's not just a perfect square. It's got like a, master bath, and you're gonna include it in one or whatever. So you put master bed and bath. One wall is 15, the other's 18, the other's 25, this one's only 6, and this one's 12. Now you have the total surface area of the walls you're doing. The ceiling, break it up into 2 squares and a triangle, or just 2 squares. One's 15 by 16, the other one is 5 by 30. Doesn't matter, every house is different, and you're gonna get the surface area for the ceiling. Now I've taken it to the extreme on this one. So this purple, you can see it says ceiling perimeter needed if not painting the walls. Reason being, if we're painting the walls and the ceiling, the way our painters do it is we can cut the line by hand when we're cutting it on the wall. If you're cutting it on the ceiling, like you're not doing the walls, you're just doing the ceilings, we have to tape caulk that line. And in our inputs, tape caulking and doing it by hand, is way different than what it takes to tape caulk. Doing it by hand, depending if it's same color or change color, it might be 60 versus 30 for how much linear footage we can do per hour. So that's drastically going to change the price. So if you're doing ceilings and walls and they don't want an option for just ceilings, you don't have to fill that out. But let's say that, you did 15, 23, and that was the perimeter linear footage. I'll show you in the prices. The way this works is it highlights it in green if it has the inputs it needs to give you a price. So when it's doing it in green, it's just saying, hey, I can give you a price on this because you have the inputs in there. If we want to know the price for doors in this room, it's saying I don't have enough inputs to get you a price. If you come down here, I'll show you how I already had this working. Okay, we're doing the walls. We need to tell it what kind of walls are we doing. Is it same color, change color, smooth, textured? Is it new, drywall? We'll say textured wall, change colors. And this is basically saying turn it on, give me prices for it. So ceiling, same thing, textured wall, change color. And then you got your baseboards. We're gonna say this is the same color. We got one door in there, so it could be, let's say it's a closet door and we're doing both sides, one side. They just want that one side done. They've got some windows in there, and the reason there's more is maybe they have a closet door and then a door out to the hallway, or maybe it's a living room, they have a French door in the back, and then they have, their front door or something like that. This is a vinyl window. It just has the one side, that windowsill, that needs to be painted. We got 3 windows in there. Say that we do want prices for this stuff. Now when we come back to here, see it says 0, and down here it says 0. And you need to tell it what kind of paint are we going to be using for these. So we'll just pick this Promar 200 from Sherwin here for these different things. And if you turn this on, now you'll see in the master bedroom we are painting and nothing's turned on, so it still says 0. But if we're just doing the walls, that's the price. Doing the walls and the ceilings, that's the price. Wall, ceilings, baseboard. Now watch, if we turn off the walls, that ceiling price is more. So it's $394, jumps up because we have to do extra work. And I'm, again, just using Excel. It seems complicated, and it was. I mean, this took me a couple weeks to build, but you can do it. I guarantee you can do it. And if you want to pay me for this, I will sell this to you if you don't want to take the time to do it. I get time is money. But again, it's not that hard. You can start real simple and keep adding to it. And let's say that they want to do the walls and the ceilings. This automatically thinks it's 2 colors, but if you say walls and ceilings, same color and sheen, you'll see it drops the price down for them. And then this is where the total price is for everything you clicked on. It is a little bit different here because it's including sundries and some taxes and stuff, and I'll show you the stuff that I hid over here. I'm even figuring if they want an option just for walls, just for ceilings. If you add those two together, say it's $5 and $5. If you add them together, it's $10, but the actual price might be $9, and that's because I'm going to use 1 gallon of paint. But if I'm giving you an option for each one, I have to buy a gallon for each one, so that's why it's 5 and 5 is 10. But now that I'm combining them, I don't need 2 gallons of paint, I just need 1. It takes that into account. It takes a lot of things into account. I mean, yeah, you can see some of these equations, take up quite a bit of space, where it's a lot. But it literally, everything I could think of I accounted for, because I know if there is something we're trying to account for, we can come up with it. And, it's really cool to where, hey, say that the estimator didn't get the perimeter, we wouldn't be able to give them a price for just ceilings, because when you do that, it says need purple input. It tells you, so it accounts for pretty much like everything. And if we have a purple input in there, it can show you the difference in price. 300, it's obviously that's really high. That's why it's a big difference there. And you can change it up. I'll show you another really cool thing. Let's say we're doing baseboards, and right now they're stained, and we're changing them to paint. If you click that option, it knows that, hey, it's telling you need to select a primer because we're going to have to prime it. So you come down here under primer, and you're going to put in, let's do the Extreme Bond Primer, and now it's spitting out the price for that. You can't actually even unclick this because it knows if you're picking that option, you have to sand it down, prime it, and paint it when you're changing it from a stain to a paint. And, so it pretty much, I tried to account for everything in here. And then it's also nice because if the homeowner wants to see 100 options, like I want to know what this room costs, well, here's what the cost of every single room is. And I wanted to know, what is that? What am I actually paying for? Like if I take out the doors, how much money am I saving? I'm going to save about $130. If I take out the baseboards, it's like, wow, that's really expensive. It's like, yeah, but you don't need the ceilings. They look fine. The baseboards look fine, or we'll do the baseboards, but let's take out the rest of this stuff. Or let's just do the walls. Now it's saying, hey, now it's only $500. And that's the majority of the room is the walls. So you can show them how the price breaks down, and you don't have to sit there and do tons of math and figure out what it actually costs to do all that. So with the exterior, I have a 2-hour long video that'll be in the description that shows you how we actually measure the exterior of a house and how we use all of these different options. But you're basically going to say, okay, siding spray, this side has 800, this side has 700. Whoops. Let's say it's a walkout basement in the back, so this side is 1200 and this side was 800. If they want it with a light back roll, it's going to take us a little bit more time, but I can show them the difference in price. Let's make sure we've got duration in there. Let's do like super paint from Sherwin-Williams. Just for the siding, that's a lot of siding, and that's the majority of the job right now with the paint and everything. It's coming out to $27.40, and now they want to know what if we don't do the light back roll? Well, if we don't do the light back roll, I can do it for $24.37. What if they want everything brush and rolled? Well, let's put siding roll, and that's going to cost them $2,900. Well, what if I want to use emerald instead of super paint? Well, that's going to jump the price up to $3,700. What if I want to use Bear Premium Plus from Home Depot? Well, that drops it down to $2,800. It's really easy to show them the differences in price with just toggling through these things. You got your eaves, whether it's trim color or body color is going to make a big difference. Let's just put in some random numbers here. You can see when they're body color and you're going to spray them with the siding. Let's bring that back to siding spray, 2480. But as soon as we switch this to trim color, now it's $3,000. And that's the beauty of it. I can show them a difference in price with just a couple clicks. Change the body, the trim. Let's make them both A100. Can show them the difference in price. Again, you can watch that video. This right here could measure a whole house, but this is for, it's got the deck right now. 800 square foot of deck. We're doing this stain is going to cost that much, but we can change this to be any kind of, say it's a fence or a shed. You can put in like siding spray, 800. This is going to be the paint, the body paint. This is what's going to change the price. Just that's going to be $790. You'd want to put in the trim and stuff. You'd come down and put some other trim standard in here for the shed. The other great things about these for the interior, if you go to the inputs, it's going to show what the inputs are. Now let's say that there's a different kind of wall that you need, you would just add it on there. Let's say it's a different kind of ceiling, like, hey, this one's a popcorn ceiling and they want the popcorn removed. My company doesn't do that, so we don't have a standard on there, but you just put like remove popcorn ceiling, and I don't know, you do 50 square foot an hour. Now you come into your room, you measure the ceiling, right? And then for the ceiling type, watch, it'll automatically pop in there now. Remove popcorn ceiling. Right now we got it at 6.7 hours. It's going to bump that up to 9.36 hours. So that's the beauty of doing the sheet, is you just come in here, you just add something that quick, and now it's accounting for that. Super easy. Here's all the different paints, the coverage. You could put a new paint, and this one only covers 200 square foot per gallon. Whatever it is, you can just always add to this. Same thing with the exterior. You go to your inputs, you can come down here and you can add more. This is just what you would divide it by, what you'd multiply it by. For the trim, we're saying linear footage, square footage. Every 300 linear footage of trim equals 1 gallon basically. And we do overshoot for it. Here's wood replacement, what we're charging. You can go in here and you could change all this, and if you do buy this from me, I'll make the changes if it's something you can't figure out. But like empty cell for homeowner requested paint or new product, you could put something you never heard of, or it's some epoxy that you normally don't use but you're going to do it for this homeowner in his job, and it's $83 a gallon. Then you come into here and you would pick that product. Now it'll show up in there, this epoxy, and it'll account for the cost. You got some other options down here, like if the homeowner is going to provide their paint and you don't have to buy that epoxy, that's what it costs now. It's a huge difference because that epoxy is expensive, but it also accounts for a little bit of labor for them going to the store. If they want to do a full coat of primer or 2 coats of paint, sometimes one's more than the other, just depending if you're doing emerald versus like A100. And then if you want to maybe charge an extra 5, 10, 20% for an extended warranty, you could do an option like that here. Painters are really happy whether they're subs or painters, because if they're employee painters, we have a performance number and we're basically figuring out, here's the budgeted hours and here's what you did it in. And if they're beating that, they have a good performance number, and we give them raises. And we give them raises because we can afford to. And so we also have like this, to where the subs can actually look here, like it says what they're making down here. This is basically, they're going to have this much for materials, this much for their labor, but this breaks it down for them like, hey, setup, cleanup, that's how much they're making. To power wash, caulk, scrape, sand, prime, they're making this. To mask and paint all the bodies and the eaves, they're making this. So it shows them like this is what they're going to get for the job. If they're also having to buy the materials for the job, just depends, you can take that out and stuff, but it spits it out. And then I really like the interior painter sheet, because we pretty much just use employees for our interior, but it shows them, to paint the walls this much time. To tape caulk the walls to the baseboards should take 2.5 hours. Again, you can see these are really complicated equations. They look like it, but it's really just, it's just these if and and functions. You can Google how they work, but it shows them exactly per room how much time and per item. So walls, they should spend, walls includes these 3 things, where tape caulk walls to baseboards, hand cut the line from the walls to the ceiling, and actually paint the walls. If you add that up, it's 9. 9 is the amount of hours. So they know, hey, for this job, they should only take 9 hours on the walls. And that's how they figure out their, we have their total hours and their material costs, but that's how they figure out their performance number and how they track it. We actually use a clocking in and clocking out system where we have them track what they did each day, and how long they spent on it, so they know, if they're behind on something. It also just, it's like having a boss there when nobody's looking over their shoulder. But if they clock in and they say they worked 8 hours on the walls and got nothing done, then like it's pretty obvious they were just Facebooking all day, and it doesn't allow for slack. But the painters actually really like it, because they know our good painters are going to make $25 an hour plus, because their performance number is great, versus someone who's never been painted before. It's like, yeah, man, you're only at $12 an hour, but as soon as you get your performance number to this for a whole month or a whole quarter, I'll bump you up to $15 an hour. And it motivates them to learn the trade, to ask, their supervisors, like, help me be better at cutting these lines. Like, you're so quick and so good at it. And sometimes it just takes time. But say that's a huge thing, is these sheets that tell the painters how much they're making for everything. And again, you can do this. It's really not that hard. You can see these equations aren't that big. For this one, for the interior one, it is a little bit more complicated for some of them, But again, if you put your mind to it, you can do this. You can come up with this equation. I would say just Google how to use Google Sheets, and you can see how to do all these like special things like drop downs, and how to have these true false functions where you're clicking buttons on and off, and do all this stuff. It's possible. If you can think of it, I guarantee it's possible. It's just a matter of how much time do you want to put into it. Watch that 2-hour video to see exactly how we do it for the exterior. If you guys want to see exactly how we do it for the interior, let me know and I'll make that video. Interiors are a lot more complicated. So without further ado, I'm going to show you how to make a measurement sheet yourself right now. So follow along, and I hope you can see how powerful this is. So I was sending people my standards. I said, hey, if you want them, I'll send them for free. But we're going to use 2 quick, easy standards here. We're going to use siding and trim, right? Walls and trim. We're going to, for this example, call it exterior. So we're going to say spraying the walls and then doing the trim by hand. Now, just arbitrary number, doesn't mean anything. Let's say every 175 square foot of wall or siding, you're able to spray in 1 hour. And that includes, masking off, walls and masking off windows, sidewalks, roofs, and all that. On average, 175 per hour. And then for trim, let's say that you can do 35 linear footage of trim, whether it's fascia, window trim, corner boards, downspouts. You can do roughly 35 linear foot an hour. If you don't know what you can do on your next house, just figure out, I spent this much time doing walls, I spent this much time doing trim, and then measure how much there was, and then you can compute it. It's really not that hard. And like I said, I'll just give you our standards, which we know works. Then the other inputs you need to know is your types of paint. Let's say that you most commonly bid one kind of paint. We'll call it paint A. And you're going to want to know a few things with that paint. So we'll need to know, what does it cost you? And for this cost, include tax, include your recycling fees. So if you're not sure, just look back at a receipt where you bought 1 gallon of paint because you need an extra gallon of trim. What was the total cost there? So it includes everything. Let's just say $32.56. We'll get real specific. We're going to tell, this is Excel, that it's money. Again, Google Sheets, exact same thing. It's completely free. And then we want to know the coverage rate, right? So if you look at, the spec sheet, it's going to say usually 300 to 400 square foot per gallon. And it normally doesn't actually cover that much. It's closer to half of that because, when you spray it on, you could argue you're putting on twice as thick, or brushing and rolling, changing colors. You're going to need at least 2 coats. So we'll say every 200 square foot is a gallon. And again, paint a house, figure out the square footage, figure out how many gallons you use, and then you can just use that number. This is the actual number that we use for siding, for spraying. So some other inputs that you're going to need is, let's say that you're paying somebody to do this job, like a subcontractor or an employee, and you want to know, what's the wage? What do you pay them per hour? I know when it comes to subbing, it's a little bit tougher because you're paying them a percentage of the job, but you want to know, well, if it takes them 3 days to do the job and they're spending, 24 hours on the job, roughly what am I paying them per hour? And then that way too, if you're going to do a really big job, a really small job, it should all come out to, they're making about the same amount per hour or per day. And especially if they're an employee, what's their wage rate? And for this one, we'll put 23.56, because you want to include, if you're doing it on payroll, what are your payroll taxes, what is your workers' comp and stuff. It's called your burden. So include the burden in that wage rate. And then we want to know, a big one is what kind of profit are you trying to make on each job? Let's say that you're only been making 5% profit. You do your taxes at the end of the year and you're not making enough and you want to change that. It's like, man, I should be making at least 15, or let's say 20% profit, 30% profit, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. So for these numbers that we want them to be percentages, so I'm just going to tell Excel we want those percentages. Let's say 25% profit is what you need to be making, what you want to be making. So some other things that you need to put in there is, what is a fixed percentage of the job? So let's say, everybody seems to be wanting to pay credit card. So you want to put that fee in there, and it's costing you, 3.2%. Normally it's 3, but we'll just put whatever it is. Now it says 3, but we can put in whatever number it is. Maybe you're getting it for better, 2.9%, doesn't matter. The point is you just put whatever it is. And then you could start listing like, office, I got, your insurance payment, yada, yada, yada. But you can kind of bundle that at the end of the year, figure out what it is to where we can call it overhead. And again, you don't have to put overhead. You can break all this stuff down. If it isn't percentage, just try to do the best you can and always shoot high. If you're roughly doing about $10,000 in revenue a month and your rent for your office, if you have one, is $1,000 a month, put 10%. That's how you can kind of figure it out. Do it on a monthly basis. We'll say that our overhead is 10%. Let's say that you have a sales estimator that's doing the estimates and you're painting or you're managing the crews or whatever you're doing. Let's say you're paying them 10%. So back from the original video I showed you, I was trying to show you, this is what you need to divide by in order to make sure that you're making the amount of money that you need to be making. And what's great about doing it in a spreadsheet is you can always make these adjustments. So you do a couple jobs that didn't work out, you can make the adjustments so that you can make the profit that you need to make. Now, problems are still going to happen and eat your profit, but this is assuming 9 out of 10 jobs go smooth and 9 out of 10 you're making this. The one job where the paint store mixed the wrong paint or something that happened, you might not make it, but you get the point. So, we're going to call this the markup, and it's simply you start at 100% and you subtract these. So 100% is actually 1, because like 90% is 0.9. So you're going to say equals 1 minus this, minus this, minus this, minus this. Now, if you're good with Excel and stuff, you could just say 1 minus the sum of all of those. But I'm trying to show you, if you haven't used this program much, it's pretty easy. You just press, if you want to do an equation, equals, and then click the numbers. This plus this, and it'll tell you what that number is. It's a pretty cool program. And it's really, don't be afraid of it. Obviously, I'm showing you real simple. You can take it to the extreme like I have, where you're using all these different crazy equations, but really it's pretty simple once you actually understand it and watch some YouTubes on it. Okay, back to figuring out, what do we charge this person, right? So now we have almost all the inputs we need. There'll probably be one more, which I'll kind of do on the fly. So we want to measure, what is the siding or wall area and total linear footage of trim. Okay, and this is what we're going to measure at the house. So let's say we go to a house, it comes out to 3,600 square foot, and the total trim, when you measure, all the trim on the windows, the doors, the fascia, the downspouts, all the trim, that's what you get, right? Now we need to know, how long does this take? We can call it unit, or how many hours you're guesstimating this is going to take. And again, we always try to shoot for the high side. The painter should be able to do it quicker than this, but they should never take longer than this, whatever these numbers end up being for you. So we're going to say equals, you take your total surface area, and you're going to divide it by how much you can do per hour. And since you can do that many an hour, it's going to tell you this should take roughly 20.5 hours to get this done. Same thing here, we're going to say equals, this is how much trim there is, and then every 35 linear foot is an hour. And how many times is 35 in 550? It's in there 15.7 times, and that's about how many hours it should take. All right, so now we're going to say total hours, and there is a little sum button you can press right here, or another cool thing with Excel, you can start typing these functions, just click it, and then you highlight the ones, and it's going to sum those two. That's how many hours you want it to take. If you want to make it simple, 36.29 hours. All right, now our wage rate is this. So if we say labor should be, unless something goes terribly wrong or we estimated wrong or there was something we weren't accounting for, Obviously you're going to make this a little bit more complicated, like putting some prep in there and stuff. I'm just showing you how easy this actually is. Equals the amount of hours times what you pay your painters, this wage right here. Okay, and then you tell Excel this should be money. All right, so that's how much it's going to cost you to pay the labor. Or if you're paying yourself, you want to make a profit and you want to pay yourself a wage, this is how much you're going to make on that wage or something. Or you can just get rid of this altogether and just put it in terms of profit. But all right, next thing we need to know is, what is the paint cost? And we need to know, okay, well, if it's covering 200 square foot per gallon, you can do some extra math over here. This doesn't have to be pretty. We'll say equals, we've got 300, this number right here, that's the surface area, divided by how much it covers, and that's going to be how much paint we're going to use on the body. Now, what about trim? Let's say, you can put a standard here, trim width. And it can be a function of that, because most homes it's 3 to 4 inches is how wide the trim is. We'll just say, hey, it's 3 inches wide, right? And then this will be, the trim number you use. You can call it whatever, because every foot is 12 inches. So if we say equals 3 divided by 12, that's how much the height in terms of foot, it's 0.25 feet high. So if we take the length, which is 550 times the height, we're going to get the surface area. So we can just, put that number here. We'll say equals the length times the height, okay? And then again, we need to figure out, okay, this is the surface area, so equals this divided by how much we're getting for coverage. It's going to be, less than a gallon. So then we can add these two together, so total gallons equals this plus this. Now, there's some rounding functions, so we're going to say equals round up, and it's going to say, okay, what number do you want to round? We want to round this number, and how many decimal marks do you want? We don't want any because we want it to be a whole number. Gives us 19, all right? You can get rid of these zeros by pressing that button there. So that's how many total gallons we have. You could say unrounded gallons. And if you really want to get technical, you can put all of this into just one equation, but I'm just showing you, for someone who's not really familiar with this system, how to do it. So that's how many gallons we're going to do. So then we're just going to take equals the amount of gallons times your cost, which was that, including tax and everything. That's how much the paint is. Now, another, input we could have is sundries. And, exterior, you usually use less sundries than interior, but it's usually roughly a percentage of your paint cost. So we want that to be a percentage that it's 10%. So then you can say, sundries, like caulking, plastic, paper, all that, equals, well, this number times 10%, and it's going to give us 10% of that, so that's what it costs. So here's your labor and here's your materials, all right? Labor and materials, so you'll just put labor and materials, total cost, and now maybe we'll use that sum function and we'll highlight what we're adding up. Okay, so that's what the labor and materials is going to be. So now what do we charge? Okay, so this is the markup and it's based on these numbers. So we're going to say equals labor and materials divided by 52% is what the labor and materials should be. If labor and materials is 52%, there's room for all this other stuff. So we're going to press that. So that's what you should charge the homeowner. All right. And what's cool is, let's say you want to make 30% profit. That's what you should charge the homeowner. Jumped it up to $3,200. Let's say that your sales guy is 10%. They're making way too much money. You could easily hire a sales guy at 5%. So you can either pass that savings on to the homeowner, instead of charging them $3,200, change it to 5, charge them that, and maybe you'll get more jobs. Or you're winning plenty of jobs anyway. That's why your sales guys are making too much money. You can pay them half and be fine. Put that money in your pocket. So change this to 35 and reduce this to 5. You're still charging the same amount, but now you're making more profit. And again, let's say your overhead goes up because you went out and you bought a truck because your van broke down or whatever the case is, and you need to increase this. Just add it on to your jobs. I mean, that's the true cost of what it is. That's the market value. As long as you're not, being crazy on your profit, people are going to buy this. And if you build the value up, you know they're buying you, they're going to buy it. So I just wanted to show this is how easy it is to make that. And really what's cool is we can just highlight these, you know, blue. Now that's when you go to a house, this is your measuring sheet, and then you measure this out. Okay, it was 4,200, and then the trim was, I don't know, 500. This is what we charge the homeowner. Let's say that they wanted to use a different paint, and that paint is $25 a gallon. That's what you charge the homeowner. Let's say they're wanting to use some special paint that only covers 100 square foot per gallon. You change that, and now you know the price. So you can keep all these the same, and now you just, you know, clear this out, save this document. This is your measuring sheet, and there you go. If you're worried about it for like a sales guy and it's all ugly and whatnot, I'll show you a trick. You highlight these, right click, and you tell it to hide it. You hide this right here, and now it's like, wow, look how clean that is. You know, I just measure those things out, and that's what I put down on the contract to charge the customer. Okay, so I think you can see how powerful that is, and really, I mean, that's what the majority of paint jobs are. You probably want to take some other things into account, like prep work, and I hope now you can see, you know, taking that concept and you can actually do this and create that. If you do want to buy one of mine that I spent a ton of time on and obviously takes everything into account, or everything I could think of at least, just shoot me an email and I'll let you know what they cost. Other than that, I wish you guys the best of luck and talk to you next time.